The election only 2 days away here. Vice President Harris, former President Trump making last-ditch efforts to sway voters who are hesitating to cast their votes over the war in Gaza. The issue could be a deciding factor in the race. Nearly 500,000 Muslim and Arab Americans are residents of Michigan, one of those crucial battleground states, which in 2016 Trump won by less than 11,000 votes. So I want to bring in Wael Al-Zayat, the CEO of Engage Action, Bashara Baba, the founder and chairperson of Arab Americans for Trump, and Hala Ahmad, a Palestinian-American organizer and political strategist who is undecided over who to support. So to discuss all of this, how the war in Gaza is impacting their votes in this election, thank you all so much for being with us today. Wael, I want to start with you. Your organization has endorsed the vice president, but also said that it, quote, is not in agreement with Vice President Harris on all issues, but rather an honest guidance to our voters regarding the difficult choice they confront at the ballot box. What is it about her policies that make you think she's the best choice to handle the ongoing conflict?
Thank you for that. Obviously, this is a very painful moment for Muslim and Arab and many Americans who are seeing what's happening in the Middle East. Look, either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump will be commander-in-chief. And while we may want to see different policies, even from the Democratic nominee, when it comes to Gaza, we absolutely want to see her speak more about how she would bring about a ceasefire, possibly conditioning aid to Israel. But at the end of the day, if we genuinely care about peace in the region, about the Palestinians, about the Lebanese who are displaced, it would make no sense to bring somebody who has promised to do even worse and provide the Israeli prime minister with even more support. Beyond that, we are Americans. We care about domestic issues. We care about our climate. We care about our children, guns on the streets. We care about access to healthcare, and really not flaming the hateful rhetoric and policies that we see from someone like Donald Trump against our very communities and faith. So it's for many reasons, but even on the Palestinian question, we believe that Kamala Harris would be a much better choice.
And thank you for that. Bashar, I want to bring you in now to respond to that. As former President Trump has claimed that October 7th and the war that followed wouldn't have happened if he were currently in office. What do you make of those comments, and what makes you think that Trump is the best candidate to handle the ongoing conflict?
Well, Trump has repeatedly said that he wanted to bring peace to the Middle East. And right now, what we need is peace in the Middle East. He has promised to end the wars that are going on, including the wars in Lebanon and Gaza. He has promised to end the killing of civilians, and he has promised a path to a lasting peace in the Middle East. I believe very strongly that another 4 years of the Harris administration are going to be identical in many ways to the 4 years of the Biden administration. So under Biden and Harris administrations, we've seen over 43,000 Palestinians being killed, 103,000 injured in Gaza alone. And we've seen over 3,000 people killed in Lebanon and almost 1,000 killed in the West Bank. So why in the world, as a vice president, could she have not had influence over the policies of the administration? I fail to understand how a vice president could be so powerless in an administration. That is the second top most important position in an administration. So my fear right now concentrates on the fact that I do not want to see the war continuing in the Middle East, and President Trump has promised an end to the wars in the Middle East.
And that certainly is lots of criticism that the vice president has faced, given that she is not the incumbent, but part of the incumbent administration. Hala, I want to bring you in because it is fascinating. We've got Bashara, who is absolutely supporting former President Trump. We've got Wael, who is supporting Vice President Harris, and you are undecided. Is that right? To this point, you still have not voted or made up your mind?
That's right. I've been holding on to my ballot along with thousands of other Wisconsinites like me because I am still making a demand to especially Vice President Harris to commit to an arms embargo and to do everything in her power right now as a member of this administration and as a leader in the Democratic Party to enact a ceasefire. And in fact, I'm undecided on how to vote, but I am certain that I'm voting against genocide. The genocide of over 40,000 people, like the over 200,000 Palestinians killed with the support of both President Biden and Vice President Harris, can't be ignored. But at the same time, I see someone who wears a blue suit and someone who wears a red suit alike walking over the dead bodies of children to get elected without angering the pro-Israel lobby and its donors. And that's what I'm more interested in is, will Harris do what she needs to do to win? And I, along with thousands of voters in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Georgia, have signed a pledge to say that we can't vote for somebody who supports genocide. And we're calling on Vice President Harris to use her power to enact a ceasefire, commit to an arms embargo before the election. And we're holding on to our ballots because before the election is when we have a right and an opportunity to make a demand. And we're seeing escalating violence in northern Gaza. In the past 2 days, over 50 children killed, as you mentioned, and over 1,000 have been killed just this month in Israel's deadly siege of northern Gaza. Kids have been burned alive, buried under their homes. These are images that people are seeing walking into the ballot box, and they know that they don't really have a choice to vote against it. Every choice is loss. But there is a real opportunity to earn votes in key swing states when the margins are that close. And
but so Hala, that's what and I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's exactly what I want to know, because we've heard so much about these undecided voters, how important they are, especially in those crucial battleground states like where you live. So you said that there are many Americans out there like yourself who are flexing their own power and holding that power before casting their vote, but you've only got 2 more days. So whether you vote or not is absolutely a vote, one way or the other. How do you reckon that? What will you do in the next 48 hours?
I think the real question is, what will Vice President Harris do in the next 48 hours? And that is really crucial to what will determine this election. We have over 25,000 Muslims who make up the vote in Wisconsin, and that is half of how many people voted for uninstructed in the April primary. And we know that that number is enough to sway the election. But the reality is that the voters who are calling for an end to the genocide and conditioning their vote, they come from every faith, every background, every race, every age. And while Americans are struggling to make ends meet and suffering from catastrophic hurricanes, millions of our tax dollars are continuing to fund a genocide in a war that most Americans don't support and Congress didn't approve. So the stakes of the election are high, but we can't promise our support to leaders until they align with a pro-peace agenda, because I think that our democracy requires that we, as voters, can demand that we have a candidate and an option to vote against genocide.
Hala, thank you so much for sharing that. And Bashar, I want to bring you back in to respond to what she said, because she said that they want to support a candidate who will support peace. For you, Bashar, that's Donald Trump. So what do you say to a voter like Hala?
Well, I appreciate what Hala says, and I agree with most everything that she said. I used to be a Democrat 6 months ago. And I could no longer tolerate the unhinged support for Israel in terms of providing arms without the consent of the U.S. Congress. I mean, the Biden administration was sending arms below 100 million threshold so that they don't have to report it to the U.S. administration, so to the Congress. So I am very upset over this issue, and we've kept warning the Biden administration to quit it, to stop being a complicit agent to the genocide in Gaza. And they did not listen. I don't believe in these last 2 days Harris is going to say, well, I'm going to try and impose an embargo on Israel, or a partial embargo. Even a partial embargo is irrelevant. A bullet kills, and a 2,000-pound bomb kills. And in that regard, from my perspective, President Trump has repeatedly told us, and he told me that in person. I saw him last Thursday, and he told me that when I raised the issue of the Palestinians in Gaza, he said, I want to end that war, and I want to end it immediately, and I want to see a lasting peace in the Middle East. Honestly, I believe that Trump is a man of his word, and Trump will do what he says he will do.
And Bashara, thank you for sharing that and for responding to so much of what Hala said. And Wael, I want to bring you back in now. Bashara says that 6 months ago he was a Democrat. Yeah. What do you say to someone like him who in the last 6 months out of this crucial election is now on the other side, pushing his followers to also support Donald Trump? And what do you say to those undecided crucial voters like Hala in the midst of this?
I hear the frustration. I myself, I'm deeply frustrated. I used to work at the State Department on Middle East policy, and I think there's much to be desired in terms of how we make these decisions, including our foreign military assistance. The question I have for Mr. Basharat, who I admire, is did Donald Trump say that he was going to condition aid to Israel? What he actually said is that he used Palestinian as a slur in his debate. He said that he's going to ban Palestinians from coming to the United States, including his very racist Muslim ban, which is going to affect all of us and our families and our loved ones. He's being courted by mega donors who've given him $100 million to recognize Israeli annexation of the West Bank, just like he did with East Jerusalem, as well as the Golan Heights. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who will be in charge of his Middle East policy, is already talking about building condominiums in Gaza. This is deeply, deeply horrifying to contemplate that in our anger and pain for the Palestinians, which we all share, and by the way, most Democrats do as well, according to polling, and a majority of Americans, that we would bring up somebody who has promised to do even more and do even worse. His idea for peace in the region is assassinating General Qasem Soleimani and striking Iranian's nuclear sites, as if we need more war and conflict in the region. And I will also add, he has promised with the rest of the Republican Party, by name, to go after Muslim and Arab organizations, peace activists, anybody who organizes for peace in the region, for Palestinian freedom. These are some dark, dark days ahead of us if we really do not protect our democracy and prevent someone like him to come back.
Well, Wael Al-Zayat, Bashara Baba, and Hala Ahmad, I want to thank you all so much for coming on and sharing and being vulnerable and having this conversation that so many Americans are having ahead of this crucial election. So thank you all so much.